I vår fyller Israel 75 år. Kerenkaemet har i över 120 år utvecklat det moderna landet Israel. Vi har utfört omfattande miljöarbete, trädplantering, ökenbekämpning, vattenprojekt, infrastruktur för att kunna välkomna judar från hela världen. Arbetet fortsätter. Nu handlar det om att välkomna utsatta judar från bland annat Ukraina och Ryssland. Din gåva skapar förutsättningar för deras utbildning, försörjning och integration. Fira med oss att den 2000-åriga drömmen om Sion har infriats. Fira Israel 75 år genom en jubileumsgåva. Alla som ger 750 kronor eller mer får ett jubileumsdiplom och en pin med Raoul Wallenbergs diplomatväska. Betala via Swish eller bankgiro. Märk din betalning Israel 75 år.
Då har vi landat i Israel.
Nu är vi i Jerusalem.
Precis, och inte bara i Jerusalem utan Davids stad.
Davids stad. Vi är på Sionberget som ligger sydväst om Gamla stan.
Och vi har ju muren till Gamla stan bakom
oss. Ja, muren och vi har Zion Gate, Sionporten. Och den porten har vi gått många gånger igenom för att komma ner till västra muren.
Precis. Sion. Porten, ja. De här programmen heter just Drömmen om Sion.
Så det är väldigt lämpligt att vi är här, eller hur?
Precis. Davids stad, Sion. Och det... Ska vi påminna om det här faktumet som vi har sagt några gånger i våra program att Jerusalem har ju aldrig varit huvudstad i något annat land än Israel.
Nej. Precis. Det kan vi väl påminna om och om igen.
Precis.
Eftersom det är sån, just i dessa dagar, väldigt spänd atmosfär här i Jerusalem.
Det är ju märkligt också för att många världsherravälden har ju ockuperat Jerusalem. Vi skulle kunna lämna i princip alla perser, grekerna, Babylonien innan det, romarriket,
turkarna,
Ottomanska riket, brittiska imperiet.
Alla har varit här.
Ja, men aldrig gjort den här staden till ett centrum.
Nej.
Politiskt centrum.
Nej.
Sen romarna jagade iväg judarna härifrån.
Precis.
År 70. I slutet av 1800-talet så var ju Jerusalem hade 25 000 invånare. Det är ganska otroligt att tänka sig det. Det var en ödslig plats.
Och som det ser ut idag.
Ja.
Helt otroligt. Det är mycket som har hänt under de här åren.
Mm. Och en viktig sak som har skapat nationen Israel, det är ju alla de judar som har återvänt hit i våg efter våg från slutet av 1800-talet.
I år är det 125 år sedan Theodor Herzl sa: om ni vill det så är det ingen dröm. Det kan ta 5 år, det kan ta 50 år. Men det kommer till att hända. Den judiska staten kommer till att återuppstå. Det säger han 1897. Under den turkiska ottomanska tiden. Långt före första världskriget och ännu längre före andra världskriget säger han detta.
Och 2 världskrig senare och exakt 50 år senare, precis som han sa, så fattar då FN det här beslutet att bilda en judisk stat här i det här området.
Ja, det var ju den här delningsplanen som röstades igenom och det var 1947 och på den grundvalen så kunde David Ben-Gurion utropa staten Israel i 14 maj 1948.
Och de här programmen som vi kommer att sända här ifrån Israel så kommer ju mynna ut i ett firande också år 2023.
Precis, år 2023 så är det då 75 år sedan staten Israel utropades. 75 år. Och tänk så mycket som har hänt.
En som har ansvaret för kontakten med alla de judar som fortfarande lever i diasporan, det är då Nachman Shai.
Ja, han är ju minister då i regeringen och har ansvaret för judar utanför Israel. Som jag till exempel. Han är min minister kan man säga.
Och hans föräldrar har bakgrund från Polen.
Ja.
Men han är själv född här innan faktiskt staten Israel bildades.
Strax innan staten Israel bildades så föddes han.
Och han var med på jubileet nu i 125-årsjubileet i Basel. Ja. Där för övrigt då Isaac Herzog var på samma balkong.
Och intog samma pås som Theodor Herzl.
Gjorde. Den klassiska bilden.
Ja. Redan 1896, året innan, så skrev då Theodor Herzl den berömda boken Der Judenstaat, där han påvisade den här visionen om att judestaten skulle kunna återuppstå.
Och efter sionistkongressen 1897 så sa han: i Basel så skapade jag den judiska staten.
Ja. Och han skapade en världsrörelse, en politisk rörelse som så småningom kom att utmynna i staten Israel och som fortfarande är fundamentet för dagens Israel, sionismen.
Okej, ska vi bege oss till departementet?
Då går vi till minister Nachman Shais kontor och ministerium.
My agenda is 8 million Jews who live out of the country. I'm their minister. I'm their representative in the government, although they did not vote for me, because they are not. Most of them do not vote in Israeli elections. But for over 20 years, this ministry has been existed. And since then, there were a variety of government ministers serving in that position, including Netanyahu and Bennett and others. So it's not the less important one. And by the way, I should say that within these 8 million Jews who live out of the country, there are approximately 1 million Israelis, which means Israeli citizens who, from their own reasons, left the country and live abroad, either permanently or temporarily. So you cannot compare it to the Greek diaspora, or the Italian diaspora, or the Swedish diaspora. The relationship between Jews who live out of the country and their country is much deeper, much more. It's based on religious, it's based on emotionally involvement. It's really a mix of feelings and opinions and approaches between Jews who live all around the world.
So I'm one of them.
Yes, I know.
Can you comment? Do you know what's happening in Sweden? We are only 20,000 Jews there, you know.
I know when I visited Sweden once, if you remember, yes, for a very important international convention dealing with the rise of anti-Semitism in our generation, which is hard to say, following the Holocaust, of course. And then I learned again about the history of the Jewish community in Sweden, including specifically the city of Malmö, which once had a big Jewish community, and the Jews, most of them left, and now I think there are only a few hundred of them, yeah, which tells the whole story of maybe what happened to the Jewish community. So we are very much concerned about the fate of the Jewish community. We are concerned about the politics of some European countries because we can see the rise of right-wing parties, not necessarily in Sweden, but also in Italy and even in France. And Hungary, of course, but that's already there, yeah. I don't know what it means in general, but it's a source of concern to us because me personally, my party, this coalition, we prefer to see centrist and parties, and even my party is in the center left. When it comes to the right, we are concerned about values which are extremely important to us. It's democracy, it's freedom, liberty, civil rights, human rights, freedom of expression, and so on and so forth. And when those values are in danger, we are concerned.
How do the aliyahs during the decades change the nation?
That dramatically changed. Not only that it added millions of people, and now we are in Israel in general around 9.5 million people, non-Jews around 2 million, Arabs, Christians, Muslims, and 7.5 million Jews, which is, and the country's, by the way, birth rate by itself is one of the world's highest, by the way. It's over 3 kids a family, which, you know, in Western countries, Sweden, I guess, is minus something.
1.5, I think.
Well, minus 0, probably. That happens in most Western countries. But Aliyah has changed. It helped Israel, as you rightly mentioned, economically. But let's say something about culture. Those people consume culture and produce culture. And you tell them, okay, so they said, how many philharmonic orchestra you have in Israel? 1. There are few orchestras, but 1 is the major one. I said, what do you mean? In Russia, every city has its own opera house and philharmonic orchestra and few theaters and everything. They love culture. But again, everywhere you go now, it's already the second generation. The first generation had huge difficulties, but the second generations are full Israelis. They move around. They speak, many of them speak Russian already because they speak Russian because they learned Russian from their parents. They watch Russian television and so on, but they are fully integrated into the general society. You see them all over, and they are a major factor in helping Israel to become a world leader in high tech, for example.
The startup nation.
Yeah, it's a startup nation. That's true. And you don't notice even their Russian accent any longer. But sometimes when you look at them, you were not born in Israel. You were born in Russia or somewhere. And by the way, when we said Russia at the time, it was the Soviet Union. Yeah. Now we know that some of them came from Ukraine, and some of them from Russia, and some of them from Georgia, and some of them from Belarus and other countries or other nations that were under Russian government.
So if you look globally, you were concerned about some states in Europe, in the US, any other states around the globe that you feel that
anti-Semitism is rising all over the world. It's hard to say that, and it makes us very much upset because we didn't expect that 75 years, 80 years after the Holocaust, there'll be so many cases of anti-Semitism. First on the virtual arena, and secondly in the real life, in the public sphere. You know, Jews are being attacked, especially when there's a war in Israel. There's a clash between us and the Palestinians, all kind of military operation that revokes also a rise of anti-Semitism. And in anti-Semitism, in some cases, of course, is anti-Israelism too. When you are launching a campaign against Israel, there is kind of hidden anti-Semitism within.
So this year it's 125 years since the first Zionistic Congress in Basel under the leadership of Theodor Herzl. Please comment.
Well, I was there. We celebrated the 125th years of the first Congress. I was there. I was there in Basel, not 125 years ago, but this occasion, yes, I was there, and it was quite emotional. With the president,
and a picture where he stands.
I didn't take this picture. I have to apologize because there was no room. Everyone was looking, wanted to be on this the balcony watching the river. So I saved it. I didn't go there. I thought it was ridiculous. Everyone would like to be Herzl. No, there was one single Herzl in our history, and he was a visionary, really rare visionary.
I think he was a prophet. You know,
he was a prophet. Said, if you read his books and
1897, he said, "If you want it, you can have it."
And he was right. And he was right.
Yes.
And he was right. But this was a way to look at our roots. Modern roots. There are deeper ones in everywhere you look around. Jews were living here, but that goes back 3,000 years ago. But in the modern era, 19th century, 20th century, Herzl was the prophet. He was the one who was able to bring the Jews from Europe at the beginning together. Then he encouraged an international movement of Jews and non-Jews to mobilize a lot of support. And then also history played into our hands, general history, the geopolitical changes between the Ottoman Empire, the British Empire, and other states and people that joined in and helped Israel to gain independence in 1948, including, of course, the UN.
And he did it in only 7 years.
Yeah, his life was short, and and also read his books and see how you can compare Israel today to what Herzl wrote 130 years ago. You wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't believe it. You see the similarities. That's true. That's true. I mean, he passed away. His family disappeared, and but the movement started in Basel, and it gained more and more momentum. And also when Jews started to renew the Jewish presence in Palestine in numbers and purchase lands, and those lands were used in order to settle the new Olim, the newcomers, before the states and after the state. There were public lands, and that gives us the room to build the country. So I can't imagine Israel without JNF, without Keren Kayemet Israel. There's no doubt about that. Most of the Israel don't know the story, but you know that, I do, Reuben knows that as well. Yeah. It's kept secret, but JNF was there. JNF was there all over.
The young people, they don't know who planted all these trees. You know?
The young people don't know a lot, but they have Google. They don't have to know anything. They just Google JNF and they'll read everything. That's the difference between us and them. They don't know. They don't have to know, but they have to know Google or other sources of information.
So, Keren Kayemet, Sweden, we are building a park in memory of Raoul Wallenberg.
Well, where?
Zorah.
In Zorah?
Zorah Forest. And we spoke to Isaac Herzog. He gave us full support, and he thought it was an excellent idea. Now, what do you think?
I love it. I think Wallenberg deserves it, and anything that can keep the memory of people who helped the Jewish people during their history. This is the place. It can be done on Yad Vashem, where they have trees planted for the memory, and everywhere in the country. Trees is a beautiful example how to do it, but you can build buildings, you can have projects.
Schools.
I'd like schools. I'd like that will serve as an example that if you did something for the Jews, they remember that. They remember you, they remember your family, and they keep it in our daily life here.
You know, the reason behind it was that for a number of years, the relationship between Sweden and Israel was a little bit frozen.
I know.
So what we KNKM in Sweden, we thought, how can we bring the countries more closer together? So, Raoul Wallenberg can be a key person to achieve this.
It's not easy to be a Jew. I said to myself recently, I'm an Israeli. I was born a little bit before the state of Israel. I was born under the British government. But I regard myself as Israeli. I wanted one day to be a Jew and to live in the diaspora. The more I learn about the diaspora, the more I learn about Jewish life in the diaspora, I'm more excited about it. How did people for their entire history kept their Jewish life, Jewish traditions, Jewish rituals under persecution, pogroms, massacres. Jewish life continued. There's something to be a Jew in the diaspora. And the founding fathers of our nation, they all came from the diaspora. That's what's special for this diaspora. The difference between that we talked about earlier, the Jewish diaspora created the state of Israel. The diaspora, in other cases, the diaspora was created after the state. I mean, like I mentioned, Italy or Greece or whatever. People immigrated somewhere else from a state, from an existing state. In the case of Israel, the diaspora created a state. At the end of the 9th century, the beginning of the 20th century, thousands of people, scores of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people moved from all over here to this piece of land, returned to their homeland and created a state. The diaspora did. And then when the state was founded, more and more Jews decided, or the state helped them, but then we were a state and we could help them to bring them physically to the country, from Arab states and from everywhere.
Sionismen pratar vi här om då 125 år, men det är ju så att det här är ju en förankring som går tusentals år tillbaka i historien. 3000 år sedan så intog
kung David intog Jerusalem och bildade då huvudstaden i riket. Jerusalem kom sen att spela en väldigt betydelsefull roll under 1000 år.
Huvudstad, men politiskt men också religiöst, alltså templets...
Absolut. Det första templet byggt av kung Davids son, kung Salomon, som stod ända till babylonierna förstörde det. Och sen återuppbyggdes det när babylonska fångenskapen upphörde och judarna kunde komma tillbaks till landet. Persiska härskaren släppte judarna när de intog nuvarande Irak, alltså Babylonien, så släppte de judarna att komma tillbaks under ledning av Esra och börja uppbyggnaden av tempel nummer 2.
Så efter babylonerna så vanhedrar ju sen de grekiska världsherraväldet tempeltjänsten. Och Makaber-upproret räddade liksom situationen, kan man säga.
Jehuda HaMaccabi och hans söner, Makabeerna, lyckades besegra grekerna, återinta templet och återinviga templet.
Sen så då, några århundraden senare, så var det romarriket och Titus.
Och vad heter helgen som vi firar till minne av Makabeernas seger mot grekerna?
Den heter Chanukka. Sen då, så under 2000 år, så var det här en ödslig plats, som vi sa. Judarna spreds över världen, och det man talar om diasporan, alltså att judar i förskingringen och att det var flyktingar och så vidare. Men de hade ju hela detta i sin bön och sitt medvetande nästa år i Jerusalem.
Absolut. Och det finns böner som bara har att göra med landet Israel, som till exempel nu regnbönen, Tfilat HaGeshem, som ber om regn. Och vi hade ju ett kraftigt oväder igår.
Kom här.
För just den här tiden på året så ska det regna för att nästa års skörd ska bli bra.
Så att under 2000 år så var det här en levande relation, även fast inte judarna fick vara här och hindrades att vara, drevs bort härifrån.
Det heter i våran gudstjänst Ki mitzion tetse Torah. Det betyder från Sion ska Toran utgå. Och sen så Ki mitzion tetse Torah Jerusalem. Alltså och ifrån Jerusalem. Så Sion, Jerusalem, landet, väldigt starkt förknippat med detta.
I vår fyller Israel 75 år. Vi vill fira detta genom att färdigställa Raoul Wallenberg Park utanför Jerusalem. Raoul Wallenberg var en svensk hjälte som på uppdrag av UD räddade tiotusentals judar under andra världskriget.
Raoul Wallenberg is an angel. He saved us, come from heaven to save us and go back to I receive my life like I approve.
Vår målsättning är att Sverige ska bli det Israelvänligaste landet i Europa. Parken är en viktig pusselbit i relationerna mellan Sverige och Israel. Fira med oss att den 2000-åriga drömmen om Sion har infriats. Fira Israel 75 år genom en jubileumsgåva. Alla som ger 750 kronor eller mer får ett jubileumsdiplom och en pin med Raoul Wallenbergs diplomatväska. Betala via Swish eller bankgiro. Märk din betalning Israel 75 år.